Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Week 6 Studs and Duds film review recap, talking about whose stock is rising and falling, both on a team scale and on a player scale. Just a reminder, the ratings you see here come from my custom Madden 19 roster, but of course, those are reflective of how I would evaluate these players in real life. It's just a different way to talk about these players. If you are unfamiliar with my Madden 19 roster, just wanted to issue that reminder. So we're going to get right into it here. Again, sorry for coming out on Friday here with Studs and Duds. It's probably going to be the norm. You might be lucky to get it Thursday here and there. And then I'm also going to try and pick up the pace on my rebuild series. I've got some new ideas for other series as well that I'm trying to get to. So I'm trying to get as much stuff out as possible, but I still am trying to get work done on the PS4 draft class, constantly being asked about that. But for the PS4 guys, a reminder, I am below the Patreon goal at the moment. So that's why that has been set aside for now. And then the 2020 draft class on Xbox is getting closer to being done as well. Also, guys, tomorrow noon Eastern, tune in on my Twitch. That's twitch.tv/ThatFranchiseGuy for the kickoff of Season 2 of the TFGO 32-man league. It's going to be a big game against the Rams, who knocked us out of the playoffs last year, so don't miss that. So enough housekeeping, let's get into Week 6 and talk about what was another good week of football. And we're going to start off with our star of the week, Saquon Barkley. What a beast. And a lot of people criticized me for ranking him at an 87 right out of the gate. I was not alone in saying that this was the best college prospect, not just in this draft class, but in 20 years past. This prospect was just incredible, and it was really hard to imagine him not just being an immediate star in the NFL. And his team's struggling, but that says even more about Saquon, that he's been able to, have the production he's doing. But, I'm not a stats guy. I'm all about what he's showing on film. And I mean, my God, he catches the ball out of the backfield, everything you want in a modern running back. But he can run between the tackles and do everything you want from a running back. And, he's going to come in ranked 5th now or tied for 5th. But, if I'm putting a team together and someone says, all right, we're taking a running back, we can get anyone we want. It's not just because he's young. I truly believe, in my heart of hearts, I think it's Saquon Barkley. He just does everything. I get he doesn't have the proven track record, but this guy just might be the best running back in football right now. So now we've got our dud of the week, and it's another Nittany Lion. It's a guy who broke out last year, but has really struggled this year, especially the last 2 weeks, and it's Adrian Amos. Still really good safety, still going to rank him here around the top 10 for total safeties, but just not living up to the standards that he had kind of set for himself last year. You would think being surrounded by an even more talented defense, he would actually take a step up. The opposite has happened here, and that big comeback that Miami had was due to a collection of very poor tackling on this Bears defense, and Amos certainly did not help in that regard. So he's going to fall off a bit this week. And let's move into the games now, recapping what I saw on film, starting with that Thursday night game, the Eagles at the Giants. Statement win for the Eagles. Now, I know the Giants aren't any good, but just to come out and remind us, hey, don't forget about the defending Super Bowl champs here. We're starting to heat up. We're getting our quarterback healthy and starting to play better defense. So things are definitely trending upwards for the Eagles, for the Giants. Obviously, you're excited about Saquon Barkley, but you see the things Sam Darnold's doing with the other New York team, and you start to scratch your head a little more. But there's really not a whole lot of excitement around this Giants team right now. So let's get into the studs and duds here. Starting with Jason Peters here is going to be a dud this week. Still a good tackle, but definitely dealing with nagging injuries, coming off a serious injury as well. And, well, he's also like 35, 36 years old. It's pretty unprecedented for a tackle to continue to play at an elite level at that age. Peters, he's been fine, just has had a hard time staying healthy and just hasn't quite been elite when he's in there. And really, this entire Eagles offensive line has taken a step back. It's all the same guys. They're just not playing at the same level. So we are going to get 2 more guys falling here. Brandon Brooks He's getting up there in age, but he's just not mauling dudes the way he was last year. Really all year, the PFF grades are down, but it also shows in the offensive production for the Eagles and just the overall protection for Carson Wentz. And then Steven Wisniewski is the other guy that's going to drop here. He was always probably the most or the least talented guy in this unit, but starting to become more of a weak link as the guys around him aren't playing at that same level. So a decent drop-off there for the Eagles O-line. The offense clearly not where it was last year. And then flipping over to the defensive side of the ball, Trayvon Hester. Raiders fans continue to scratch their head as another interior D lineman here leaving Oakland ends up getting picked up off waivers, and he's playing really well. Now, limited reps, but is doing a good job in run defense for the Eagles. And then for the Giants, we got a couple defenders here to talk about. B.J. Goodson has been getting more involved here and playing pretty well at the linebacker spot. And then Lorenzo Carter, a college prospect I was very high on this year, has really dropped off these last couple weeks. Limited reps, but when he's in there, the rush just isn't there. This Giants defense as a whole is flat, but you'd certainly like to see a little more promise from the high upside prospect there, Lorenzo Carter. And then on the offensive side for the Giants, Eli Manning, it's time to drop him down one. I kind of said for the first couple weeks that he actually looks a little better this year than he has in years past. Now, that's not saying much. I've had him as low as a 73 last year, but he's just not good anymore. And it's rhetoric at this point to talk about it. We've hammered it on this channel for 3 years. The secret's out. And then Saquon Barkley, of course, is going to get that +3. So moving on, let's talk about the Seahawks in London playing the Raiders here. And the Raiders have probably hit rock bottom at this point. The defense is really living up to what I predicted was going to be a historically bad defense, like one of the 2 or 3 worst defenses in NFL history. It's living up to that. The offense, just Derek Carr is seeming more and more like just a guy back there at quarterback. He's got this great arm, but he just doesn't use it. He's basically got the Alex Smith mentality, but with the physical ability of a more elite quarterback. So there's something wrong there with Derek Carr. Gruden hasn't quite revived his career there. Carr's career, that is. I actually don't think Gruden's doing the worst coaching job in the world. I just don't think this roster is any good, but that is also Gruden's fault. I think Gruden, the general manager, has run this team into the ground. From a coaching perspective, I think they've actually done some decent things offensively throughout the year, even though it didn't show in this game. And then for the Seahawks, just staying alive, man. The defense just keeps not bringing in guys, but just has these players that kind of show up out of nowhere. We'll talk about a bunch of studs here for Seattle this week. But it's just a testament to Pete Carroll and the culture here, the Legion of Boom culture. While they don't have the talent from a player perspective, they still have that culture, and it just speaks volumes to the whole draft and develop culture and how important that stuff is. And also Russell Wilson's pretty good quarterback as well. So the studs and duds from this one, David Moore for Seattle. This is a guy that was actually on my preseason watch list, and he's been getting a lot of playing time, and the receivers are getting healthier here. You got Tyler Lockett in there, but you got Doug Baldwin starting to get healthy, but they are really pushing to keep David Moore a part of this offense. He's a good deep threat, really good hands. We'll see if he continues to stay relevant here despite him being kind of the 4th receiver there. Depends what you kind of think of Jerron Brown. But an interesting player to keep an eye on there. And then Bradley McDougald continues to, frankly, dominate the safety position. He's been one of the best safeties in the entire league this year. Versatile guy, but he's been playing, for the most part, that Cam Chancellor role. And I'm not going to lie, the drop-off there has not been that much. He's been just lights out. And honestly, he might have even more range than Cam Chancellor had. He doesn't have the same intimidation, obviously, but a really nice player, really coming on in the middle of his career here, and he could, work his way into a pretty nice contract here and become into that sort of star safety tier, depending if he keeps this up. And then we got some lower level D linemen here for Seattle. Quentin Jefferson on the edge being that sort of Michael Bennett role. Obviously not the talent of Michael Bennett, but the first and second down, bigger edge defender, really good run defender. He's playing that role, so he gets a +2. And then Poona Ford man, between Bradley McDougald and Poona Ford, we got some great names here, but a smaller interior defensive lineman. You guys know I got a little crush on 6-foot D tackles. I just think it's one of the most underrated things in football is to get that explosive defensive interior guy that just gets the leverage. You think about like Aaron Donald, Geno Atkins, Mike Daniels. These guys are all, according to the standards that old NFL scouts would say, these guys are all undersized. But when you really think about it, they're just so hard to block because you can't get under their pads. So Poona Ford, just another testament to that. These guys it's starting to become more recognized. We're getting more and more of these guys in the league. But Poona Ford coming in and rushing the passer on third downs, playing a little bit of run defense, but mostly playing that rotational role right now. But do keep an eye on him, an undrafted guy out of Texas. So stock up for the Seahawks in general. Probably still not a playoff team, but the NFC is kind of starting to fall apart. So we'll see. I don't think they're eliminated yet. They could keep it interesting. They're not a team anyone's really looking forward to playing. But for Oakland, they're just, nothing really to talk about from a player perspective. They stink. Their roster's terrible. So now we've got the Bears at the Dolphins. We thought this was going to be a close game, but man, it did not disappoint. This was probably the most entertaining game of the entire week, just in terms of how the game played out. I mean, Chicago was really in control for the better part of this game. They did fall down early, but up until about 12 minutes in the fourth quarter, it was looking like Chicago's got this. And then Mitch Trubisky throws just a stupid-ass interception in the red zone. I tweeted about it. That's the kind of thing that you want to look at Mitch Trubisky. At the time, it felt like the Bears were still going to win, but that's the kind of thing, you do that against Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. When you have a chance to go up 2 scores in the fourth quarter and you give them the ball back in the red zone like that, and they were on like the 8-yard line, that's just such a back-breaking thing. That's the same crap that Jay Cutler used to do that let good teams come back and beat them. So hate to see that for Mitch Trubisky. All around was just not a great game for Trubisky. And then the defense took a step back this week. Khalil Mack got banged up. That obviously hurt them, but just to be so bad at tackling late in that game when they had a chance to close out the Dolphins, really concerning for the Bears. And they got to turn around and play the Patriots this week. As for Miami, this is who they've been. Frankly, I don't think it matters who's in at quarterback for them because they are going to win by creating big, explosive plays on offense. Is what we've been saying all year, and it was no different this game. They had a 75, 80-yard, maybe even more yard touchdown from Albert Wilson late in this game to really keep it interesting. But also taking care of the football and then playing tough defense and creating turnovers. That's who they've been all year. It's a game plan that is independent of the quarterback, whether it's Brock Osweiler or Ryan Tannehill. And it's a game plan that's going to create a lot of close games. It's going to make you an upset potential team, but it also is not a consistent way to dominate teams. So I feel like we got a pretty good grasp on this Dolphins team. It's probably going to be the same thing against Detroit this week. I expect a close game for them almost every week, especially at home in Miami, where they can beat anyone. But let's move on and talk about the studs and duds here for Chicago. Eric Kush. And we've talked about why James Daniels, a good second-round pick here out of Iowa, has not been starting at left guard. Now, they have started to, rotate him in there. I've noticed Daniels has been getting about 20 reps at guard, so it looks like they're trying him out. But Eric Kush is holding on to this job, really doing a good job in pass protection, is clearly the guy they trust to, buy time for Mitch Trubisky. But then on the other guard spot, Kyle Long's really struggled, not just this year, but going back to last year. And when he started his career, he was one of the premier guards in the league. He just hasn't been able to get back to that. He suffered some injuries and just really over the last 2 years hasn't been able to get to that level. He's continuing to kind of regress. And then flipping over to Miami's side, this interior defensive line has a bunch of kind of no-name younger guys. Davin Gadshaw, used to be Jordan Phillips. They let him go. Vincent Taylor. But Gadshaw is the guy, and I'm probably screwing this name up so bad. It could be Godshocks for all I know. But he's the guy playing the most snaps here. Talk all the time about, making a big play here or looking at the PFF ratings. It's all important, but when all is said and done, NFL coaches, for the most part, kind of know what they're doing. And when you see an interior guy playing 50, 60 snaps a game, they really like that player, and that player has shown a lot, and that's Davin Gadshaw. who played, I think, like 54 snaps in this game. Granted, there was a lot of snaps, but he's getting the most playing time. He's probably the best interior of that group. And then Frank Gore going up 1 this week. We got a lot of risers and fallers this week, by the way. I think we're going to get a longer episode this week, which I know some of you guys were hoping for. But Frank Gore, reliving his glory days here in Miami this week. The crowd was blowing up. They wanted, I think, to go to Frank Gore on the goal line where Kenyon Drake fumbled. And I think Gore probably would have converted that play. So we'll see. We might continue to get more Frank Gore. Hey, the man just keeps playing. Gotta love it. Gotta respect it. Dude's, making a case here to be probably a first ballot Hall of Famer. Very few running backs can do this at this age. And then Devontae Parker has just disappeared. He plays 5 snaps this week. He was on the trade block earlier this year. No one wanted him. Former first-round pick with a lot of physical ability. Clearly just doesn't have a passion for football, as there's been opportunities here for him to step up. He just has not been able to capitalize. So we're starting to write him off, really, more or less. And then our next game, Buffalo at Houston. This game was gross. Really bad offense on both sides. And, defensively is basically just a good pass rush. Don't really want to spend a lot of time talking about this game. Buffalo in general is just, we've got a grasp on who they are. They're a good defensive team and the worst offense in football that we've seen in a long time, I think. And it's only getting worse. Josh Allen hasn't been very good by any stretch of the imagination, but he goes down and your options are Nathan Peterman and Derek Anderson, who they just brought in a week ago. It's going to keep getting worse here for Buffalo. And then for Houston, I'm not buying into this offense. I don't trust Deshaun Watson. I think he's fine, but he's just not consistent enough. The offensive line is the biggest problem here, and they have no running game between the offensive line and the running backs. You guys know I've never been a Lamar Miller guy, so, whatever. I think Houston's going to make a good case to win that AFC South just because Jacksonville's sucking right now too, and Tennessee and the Colts. So, the AFC South continues to really be a joke. Even though we thought it might be the most competitive division in the NFL this year, it's been the opposite. So studs and duds, Jerry Hughes. This is a guy that's kind of floated between that, true number 1 level edge rusher and then being that high-end number 2, really for about 4 years, ever since he left, it was Baltimore, right? Or was it Indianapolis? Pardon my lack of memory there. But ever since he got to Buffalo, he's floated between those 2 tiers. And towards the second half of last year, he started to drop off towards that tier 2 again, and now he's back into that really, high-end, elite caliber edge rusher. He's playing really well this year. Now, a lot of his big games, Houston, Minnesota, I think I might be able to get a sack against those offensive lines if you give me enough snaps. But don't want to take anything away from him. Jerry Hughes has been great. And then Teron Johnson, this is a guy that's gone up already this year, starting in that slot, but a young corner here, rookie, playing pretty well for Buffalo. They've done a good job here developing cornerbacks for sure. And then really the star of this game was Matt Milano, who went up 2 last week. He's really having a breakout here, and he's probably going to continue to skyrocket here. So this is 4 overall in 2 weeks for Matt Milano. Undersized linebacker, built more like a safety. Not great between the tackles, but really instinctive cover guy. Great athlete. Made some big plays in this game, just like he did last week. And then we got Zach Cunningham. He is a linebacker that's dropped earlier this year. Had a really good rookie season, but was getting picked on for the first month of the year, but he has definitely settled down. We know he can play, just kind of had to get his head on his shoulder. Looks like he's doing that. So that's going to do it for that game in Houston. Now we've got the Chargers visiting the Browns, a statement win for the Chargers. A lot of people are kind of back on this wagon. I've been on it all year, but this is an offense that's rolling. It's a defense that's playing better, that's only going to get probably exponentially better if and when they get Joey Bosa in there, which you would think would be in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And then for Cleveland, the defense, it's fine. It's a solid defense, but they just got overwhelmed by Phillip Rivers and the Chargers in this game. The offense really had nothing going. Baker was not very good in this game. He made a few throws, but really just didn't make a whole lot happen. But, to Baker's credit, he has no receivers right now. Jarvis Landry is not playing well at all, and Antonio Callaway is not ready to be a starting receiver in this league. And David Njoku just is not exactly the model of consistency. So, I think Baker's doing fine. He's still impressed me overall this year. But if you are counting tallies in the Darnold versus Baker win column still, I think they could both be pretty good. I still like Darnold's ceiling better, but this week was definitely a win in the Sam Darnold column. But anyway, let's get into the studs and duds here. We got Melvin Gordon. I haven't talked a lot about Melvin Gordon on this channel, which is surprising because I am a big Melvin Gordon fan. And luckily for me, I own him in like every fantasy league. I was just buying all the stock in Melvin Gordon, who is just killing it this year. The guy seems to score 2 touchdowns every week, but he is explosive. He has great vision. He is safe with the ball. He doesn't turn it over. He catches the ball, safe hands. And, while he might not have that one elite trait, the girly explosiveness, the Bell patience, the physical imposingness of like Zeke and David Johnson, he might not have that, but just from a talent standpoint, he just offers everything you want. So well-rounded, and it was time to give him a little love here. And then Tyrell Williams, who dropped a couple times earlier this year just because of dumb drops, which have really plagued him throughout his career, but just reminding us in this game of the physical ability, and to see him, we know he can get open. He's big and fast, but to see him use that to go into traffic and make big catches, it's just a reminder of kind of the upside of Tyrell Williams and kind of the things he offers this offense. And then this has been a huge underrated signing, and I feel bad I haven't talked about it to this point. It's been a big talking point a lot this week across football media, but Mike Pouncey, this dude, what a signing for the Chargers. It was under the radar when it happened. Not a huge contract, but there was a day when Mike Pouncey was regarded as one of the 5 best centers in the NFL, but he's had injury history. He goes to the Chargers, who just never stay healthy, and everyone's like, he'll get hurt week 3. No, he's been in there. He's been dominating. He's been playing like one of the 5 best centers in the NFL again, and he has just sparked this offense to a level of consistency that they just haven't had in the past. And I think, Philip Rivers is playing great, obviously, but I don't think Rivers is showing us anything we didn't already know about him. And we knew Keenan Allen, Melvin Gordon, we knew these guys are good. But that consistency on the interior of that line, and just to have what he offers, both in terms of pass pro and in the run game, it's helping so much for this Chargers team. And it's helping a guy like Michael Schofield here, who's going to go up +3, who, Denver fans are laughing right now. This guy was the laughing stock in Denver. They tried him at right tackle. He couldn't block anybody. But he's coming in here for the Chargers. He started at right guard the last couple weeks and really played very well. And I think a large part of that is he's next to Mike Pouncey. And then flipping over to Cleveland side, a couple receivers here we got to talk about. We kind of already mentioned them, but Jarvis Landry just not getting it done. Where are you, man? Creating separation has never been his strong suit, but he's proven it yet again, that he is really just a slot receiver, even though he's a damn good one. And then Antonio Callaway is going to come down 1 this week. Just a reminder that you do want to kind of pump the brakes on some of these younger players. We boosted them early in the year after one decent game. They trade away Josh Gordon. It seemed like a ringing endorsement of Antonio Callaway. But that definitely seems like it might have been eager. His stock is definitely falling right now. Next, we got the Panthers at the Redskins. Not a whole lot to say about this game. I think both teams were exactly who we thought they were in this one. It could have gone either way. The Panthers continuing to be a solid offense and a solid defense. Cam Newton continuing to play well this year. And then the Redskins continue to be that scrappy team who's going to be much better at home, who takes care of the football, can take the ball away, make you pay for mistakes. And it worked out for them in this one. I think both these teams are solid teams that'll probably be in the mix for a playoff spot when all is said and done. So the studs and duds from this one, we are going to talk about Alex Smith here. Definitely fallen off of the high production he had last year. Just not really anything explosive going on in this Redskins offense. I didn't think it was going to be the Chiefs from last year, but I did think, he showed a lot of ability to go vertical and, had kind of taken a step up last year. We haven't seen that quite as much. It's been much more old Alex Smith. We're ranking him 80. It's still a very respectable QB ranking for my scale. It's still a top 16 quarterback, but he just, hasn't quite lived up to that uber hype coming off of last year. And then the left tackle here, Trent Williams. I've been a big proponent for Trent Williams being, one of the 2 or 3 best tackles in the NFL. There was a time not too long ago I would consider him the best, but just the injuries have stacked up, and he's playing now. He played through some really nagging injuries last year, and I think it's taken a toll on his really physical ability and overall health, confidence, all that. The PFF rankings way down. Still a damn good football player, but just not quite that uber elite talent level that we've seen from Trent Williams in the past, and he's 30 now, so it's just kind of that time where he's taken that teardrop. So next we got the Cardinals at the Vikings. Vikings just kind of taking care of business in this one. The Cardinals aren't any good. The offense has no explosion. The defense is kind of whatever. They got a couple star players and some holes. It's whatever. And then the Vikings side, they're trying to keep this train rolling. They're dealing with some stuff right now. You got Dalvin Cook. You don't know what's going on there. They're trying to figure out this offensive line, get some sort of consistency there. You don't know what's going on with Everson Griffin, but they capitalize on the easy home game this week. Keep this thing going. They got to go to New York this week against the Jets. They're favored in that game, but keep an eye on that one. I just don't think the Vikings quite have that punch and the it factor right now, though I think they, especially if they can get Everson Griffin back, have a good chance to get back to that level. So the studs and duds from this one, Larry Fitzgerald, it's time. We talked about Trent Williams dropping off. Larry has been even more dramatic than that. He hasn't been good at all. At least Trent Williams, he's been a above average starting caliber tackle. Larry, not so much. He's not getting open. He's not creating those crazy contested catch situations anymore, or at least they're not leaning on him to do that. And, he's had an amazing career. I'm not going to bash Larry Fitzgerald or anything. It's just that you got to look at this objectively, and he's just not a good receiver anymore. I think this is probably the beginning of the end. I don't see him playing another year in the NFL, but, we're talking about a first ballot Hall of Famer, a guy that for about a 5-year stretch was the unanimous best receiver in the NFL in a passing league. So hats off to Larry. He might continue to drop this year if he keeps playing like this, though. And then David Johnson, again. And you guys know I love David Johnson. Trying to shake this somber tone because these are two players that I love and respect. But they're just not playing well this year. I thought David Johnson would struggle in this offense, but I did think the production was going to be better than this. I really regarded him as the best running back in the NFL and a guy that I regarded him that way because of his ability to perform despite crappy situations, and that's not what's going on here. So the stock's fallen a little bit on David Johnson. I still think he's a great running back. Just a little bit disappointing this year. And then on the Vikings side, Danielle Hunter, he's going to go up for the first time this year. Certainly stepping up with Everson Griffin out. Obviously, the rush has not been what it was with Everson Griffin. But Hunter doing a good job to keep the train rolling, like I was saying. He's on pace for like a 50-hurry season, which is very good. Now we got Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. What a game this one was. As you'd expect, tough game. Came down to the wire. Big Ben and Antonio Brown pull it out in the end. Really could have gone either way. The Steelers' defense has bunkered down a little bit. Still don't think they're that good, but definitely as the season has gone on here, they've gotten tougher, better disciplined. So things trending up for the Steelers for sure. Definitely not writing them off in terms of the AFC picture here for the Super Bowl. As for the Bengals, I think it's a very good team. I don't consider them on that tier with the Steelers. I just think, in this league, you got to have an elite option, whether it's dominant pass rush, elite secondary play, quarterback play, obviously, a dominant offensive line. You got to have something that you can go to and be like, you're going to beat us? Well, you're going to have to take care of this unit. And the Bengals don't quite have that. They are very much above average in many departments, which is more than a good chunk of teams can say. But when you got Andy Dalton at quarterback, your offensive line kind of stinks. You got some good playmakers, but you can only do so much with those playmakers. It's kind of like the Giants thing. If you don't have a great quarterback or a great offensive line, and Andy Dalton's been better this year. And then defensively, they got a bunch of really good players, but outside of Geno Atkins, they don't really have any superstars there. And it's an offensive league this year anyway. But a solid team. They're probably an AFC wildcard team. So the studs and duds from this: Juju Smith-Schuster. This guy just plays football the right way, and honestly, it surprises me a little bit because you see him, he's like 21, he's a Hollywood kid or whatever, he's from Southern California, he does the YouTube stuff, he's all into Fortnite, you think, he's a good player, he's a little flashy, he's kind of got that, off the field swagger, but, he's probably one of those typical diva wide receivers, right? No, this guy is Hines Ward on the football field. He is like a living recreation of him. He is 21 years old, but has fully grown into his body. He's 6'1", probably almost 220 to be honest. He blocks. He is incredibly physical at the catch point. This guy catches everything. And there was a play in this game. And again, I wish I could show this stuff if the NFL didn't take my money. So you just have to close your eyes and use your imagination. But, there was a fumble. I can't remember who fumbled it, but the Steelers were driving. And there's a flock of Bengals, probably 3 defensive backs for the Bengals, diving after the ball. But Juju, right in the heat of there, dives in there, out-muscles 3 guys, and gets the football. And it sounds simple, but that's not something you always see from receivers, especially young players as well. Just the awareness, the grittiness, and he's a crafty receiver as well. He runs good routes and stuff. But, the reason I'm talking so much about Juju right now is I really believe he is on pace to be a superstar receiver in this league. A Larry Fitzgerald type of player who is just reliable and smart and physical and is the perfect Pittsburgh Steeler. And I'm really growing into like Juju for reasons that I didn't think I would. And then on the other side of the ball, the Bengals got a guy that's kind of like that, and Tyler Boyd, who continues to go up this year. Now, I'm not buying into him as much as Juju. I don't think he's as physically gifted. And, it's just kind of the thing where you were in the league, bro, for like 3 years and you didn't do anything. All of a sudden you're breaking out and you're going to get a contract all of a sudden. Pump the brakes a little bit on Tyler Boyd, but he has been really impressive this year. He's been the number 1 target on this Bengals offense. And then Bobby Hart for the Bengals. He's been a saving grace. The right tackle, it's just been a revolving door. Not just the people playing there, but actually an open door for pass rushers to just come right on in and knock the living daylight out of Andy Dalton. And Bobby Hart has shut that door. Now, he's not a dominant right tackle, but he's been a mainstay all year, and he's not been terrible by any stretch of the imagination at right tackle. And then you got Jordan Evans, who a lot of Bengals fans, I think, are excited to see him start to get more acclimated. Nothing crazy here, but when he's been out there, he's played well. The coverage grades are really good from a PFF perspective. We're talking about a 6'2", 330-pound freak athlete at linebacker that hasn't really put it all together yet, but has that high upside that you can get excited about. So keep monitoring Jordan Evans there. Next, we got the Colts at the Jets, and this game... let's see, how can we word this? There were a lot of unsurprising surprises in this game. Colts at Jets, you would think turnovers, right? Kind of mad at myself for not, finding the over on turnovers in this game and just picking it because it just was so predictable. Both teams turning the ball over a bunch. This game just kind of turned into a crapshoot. But good to see Darnold go really punch for punch and actually beat out Andrew Luck, who has been my comparison for Sam Darnold this entire time, was Andrew Luck. Now, the Colts are just depleted right now in terms of injuries. I think they're a better team than we saw this week. I still think they're going to end up putting together a solid season, actually win 5, 6, 7 games, despite their record being really poor right now. And then on the Jets side, you're optimistic. There's a chance they sneak into the playoffs, but overall, you got your quarterback, you got some young players. They'll continue to build around them. It's just a team that you can just kind of sit back, relax, and anything great that happens, whether that's playoffs or wins or whatever, it's kind of house money. You're definitely trending upwards. Just one stud in this game, Jihad Ward, and it's a lower-level guy, but he went up after week 1. He doesn't play a ton of snaps, but, the highest-rated Colts defender in this game. Just another piece in this front seven that, surprisingly gets after the quarterback extremely well, and it's just a bunch of dudes plus Jabal Sheard, who's kind of a star. So Jihad Ward, just another piece of that. You really got 6, 7 guys in a crazy rotation up there in the front. Next, we got Bucks at Falcons, probably the least surprising result of the week. We called 37-31. It was 34-29? Just a shootout, no defense on either side. But Matt Ryan at home with this offense just pulled away. Too much for Jameis and the Bucks to handle. And I just tweeted this out at TFG_football if you're not following me. But what the hell is the NFL doing with the Falcons schedule right now? They're going to play the Giants at home this week. That is their 5th home game in 6 weeks, which is, if I'm a Falcons fan, I'm pissed about that because that means you got to go outside a bunch in the cold. This is a team that is literally built to get home field advantage in the playoffs and play at home and not have to deal with that stuff. But they're going to be, going to Cleveland, I think I saw. I know they got to go to Green Bay, and it's just, if anyone is buying stock in the Falcons after they just take a dump on the Giants this Monday, which I think they will, just pump the brakes. I mean, they're going to play 3 home games in their last 9, and we've seen what Matt Ryan looks like on the road this year, and it's not pretty. So I think this week is going to be the last fun week for the Falcons, and then it's just going to turn into, why is this team wasting time winning games at this point? Like, just get a good pick. And then for the Bucks, Jameis, you stock up, I guess. I've sold all of my Jameis Winston stock at this point. I thought they should have drafted a quarterback before the Uber incident. Imagine if this team had, oh my God, this is the first time I'm thinking about this. Imagine if they had Josh Rosen instead of Vita Vea right now. How does that just change the landscape of this team? Like, we saw what Ryan Fitzpatrick did. Josh Rosen is so much better than Ryan Fitzpatrick. It's not even funny. So they screwed that up. Vita Vea is like whatever. He's a run-defending nose tackle. That was one of the worst picks. At least take Derwin James. Your safeties stink. Anyway, the Bucks just piss me off. I don't know what they're doing. Studs and duds in this game. Jason Pierre-Paul and Vinny Curry again. The attempt to fix this miserable edge rush, not working. Jason Pierre-Paul has 4 hurries this year. I know he has 5 sacks, but 4 hurries. Just think about that for a second. That's on pace for 11 hurries on the season? 12? That's garbage. And Vinny Curry hasn't been much better. So the pass rush is a major problem here with Tampa, as is their secondary. You can basically do whatever you want with this Bucks pass defense. And then for the Falcons, we actually got Calvin Ridley going up. Despite him getting beat up in this game, leaves early, but for the first time, he graded out incredibly well, just the 7 snaps. But, I was kind of hesitant because he has these big plays. But the way at PFF we were grading him was, not that high. Definitely didn't match his production. But I did a little bit of watching the All-22, and he really does just run sharp routes. I wasn't super high on him coming out, but, he's a little more explosive than his workout scores showed, I think. Just a really solid receiver, slower Brandon Cooks was my comparison coming out. I'll stand by that, but he's a little bit more of an impact right away than I think I thought he would be. And I'm also not very high on Brandon Cooks, by the way. So moving on, Rams at Broncos. Tighter game than a lot of people expected. Jared Goff looking pretty human in this game. Really the offense in general looking pretty human. Denver, are they good? Are they bad? Recording this after Thursday Night Football. They just dominated the Cardinals in Arizona. They hung in there with the Rams. These teams, man. Some of these teams, it's so hard to get a grasp on if they're good or bad. I think Denver is semi-good. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But the Rams just keep rolling. Even though in this game they were kind of average on both sides of the ball, I do think this defense is very human. But you really got to bring it. To keep pace with this offense, both defensively to slow them down and then offensively just to keep up. And Denver just didn't have the firepower to do that in this one. So we got a bunch of players to talk about here. Todd Gurley is going to go up. Just due time that we gave him some respect. He's playing outstanding this year. But also we raised Saquon and Melvin Gordon this week. I do think Todd Gurley is still a little step above those guys, though I think it's closer than a lot of people would say out there. I still think Gurley has some holes in his game. His vision to me is still kind of whatever. He's definitely kind of a power runner, and that he kind of needs to know where he's going. And then once you get him in space, forget about it. But, he doesn't have that Le'Veon Bell, Melvin Gordon sort of vision, I don't think. And I don't think he always runs for as much power as he could. But, I don't want to talk too much bad about Todd Gurley because I'm bumping him up this week. But I do tend to be a little lower on Todd Gurley compared to the other running backs. A lot of people seem to say Todd Gurley's the best running back in the NFL. I tend to disagree. I think he's in an amazing situation and has a lot of coverage with the national media right now. And then Austin Blythe, moving up again, just ridiculous that the Rams were able to find this guy, bring him in, and he's playing as one of the highest rated guards in the NFL. So he's continuing to play like that. He's going to go up. Corey Littleton continues to play well. Undersized guy, not very good in run defense. He's actually a pretty decent reason this team has struggled against the run as of late, but his coverage ability has been spectacular, so he's got to get recognized for that. And then Ndamukong Suh, and he was almost the dud of the week, but we left him off because I think a lot of people think I hate the Rams. But very average feedback from PFF from his last 4 weeks, really, and the Rams have struggled against the run. Suh has not made the impact I think they were hoping in terms of run defense. He's not really an elite pass rushing interior guy. To be honest, he never really has been. While he's good in that regard, he's not anywhere close to like what Aaron Donald or Geno Atkins can offer in terms of the pass rush. So if he's there to play run defense, he's not doing the best job. Certainly not enough to warrant that 90 overall that we had him at. And even more telling is the fact that his grades are down despite playing Seattle, Denver, and Minnesota in his last games and having very middling grades in that department. What happens when you got to go up against Philly or Green Bay, who's got good linemen to slow you down. So anyway, flipping over to the Denver side of the ball, Phillip Lindsay. This guy's a problem, man. He's fast, can catch the ball. He's sneaky good running like between the tackles and stuff. Clearly the best running back they have there. I was never a big Royce Freeman guy, and he's really disappointed. I just don't see any burst with Royce Freeman. And then you look at Phillip Lindsay, it's like, why even waste your time giving the ball to Freeman? I know he's like 60 pounds heavier, but Lindsay just looks great. And then falling here for Denver is going to be Justin Simmons. Was rated pretty high, and he's really struggling there from a coverage standpoint the last few weeks. So he's going to come down to earth a little bit. Now we got the Ravens at the Titans. Don't really want to spend a lot of time talking about this game. The Titans are, I think, unwatchable. I ran a poll on who's the most boring team in the NFL, and the Bills and the Titans were the two highest, and I think the Titans won it. Like, the offense is just frustrating because they can't figure anything out. Marcus Mariota is basically Alex Smith at a younger age, though I think even Alex Smith knew when to run. Mariota, it's just like, frustrating to watch. And then Tennessee's fine defensively, but it's nothing too special. And then for Baltimore, they're not very fun to watch either. I mean, they play really good, exciting defense, but there's nothing about that offense that's very exciting. You keep hearing that their offense is very underrated. I don't know. I mean, it's better than it was last year, but is it underrated? I don't know. Like, they run the ball fine. They got a solid line. I don't think Flacco's doing a whole lot that's impressing me. And I don't love these receivers either. So a pretty lame game, to be honest. I mean, credit Baltimore. They played outstanding defense. The secondary was notably dominant in this game. Tennessee's receivers could do nothing, and that's, I think, a big reason you get those 11 sacks. It's just Mariota had nowhere to go with the football. And it's not like Tennessee has a bad line either. But just one faller here. It's going to be Dion Lewis coming down two. Just has not been able to provide any kind of spark for that offense. He's still a solid piece, but just hasn't quite lived up to the expectations there, I don't think. Next up, we got Jacksonville at Dallas. I'm keeping my I told you so face away. But the Jags offense doesn't travel. We all know why. The BB gun. I saw today Bleacher Report wrote an article regrading everyone's offseason, and they actually had Jacksonville at a D-. These are ranking their moves that they made. Jacksonville and Oakland were the lowest with a D-. So they're basically saying trading away a first ballot Hall of Fame pass rusher to open up cap space that you then use for a bunch of slow veterans that in turn run your team into the ground. Obviously talking about Oakland. That gets the same grade as essentially re-signing Blake Bortles. That's basically what it comes down to. You could have had so many other quarterbacks. You could have traded for Teddy Bridgewater. You could have drafted a quarterback. Could have drafted Lamar Jackson. I'm not that high on Lamar Jackson, but he would have been better than Blake Bortles. I feel pretty damn good about that. You could have tried to make it work with Kirk Cousins. You could have gone for Case Keenum. Sam Bradford would be better. So many doors that could have been open. And that's just this offseason. They've been lying to themselves about Blake Bortles for 2 years, and it is biting them in the ass because this division is open for the taking, and you can't play offense on the road. And, we talked about in the power rankings. In 2018, I don't care how good your defense is. At some point, these offensive minds are so creative. The rules are so in favor of the offense. At some point, you got to be able to score points. And Jacksonville just can't do it on demand at all. Their offense is completely predicated on crossing routes and making defenders miss, which is so unreliable. They just traded for Carlos Hyde, just before I sat down for this. It could help a lot, actually, if I'm being honest, because one problem with Leonard Fournette, even when he's healthy in this offense, is he doesn't really catch and make guys miss and offer that element. He's really just a one-trick pony. Well, Carlos Hyde's very underrated in the receiving game. He's basically, if you combined Leonard Fournette and TJ Yeldon, which they try to do, but you can't have them both on the field at the same time, you kind of come out with Carlos Hyde. He doesn't have quite the power of Leonard Fournette. But I think it's a good fit. I think it's going to help. And Jacksonville's probably still the favorite in that division. But they do play Houston this week, who's really the one team that I think could keep it interesting down the stretch. Maybe Tennessee, but I don't want to talk about Tennessee. I'm done with them. Let's stay focused here. Let's talk about Dallas. Stock is up for Dallas just in general. Good to see them get the offense going, recognizing that Cole Beasley really should be our number one receiver, even if he's a tiny slot guy, because the rest of these guys aren't any good. Dak played very well in this game. He's been playing well for a couple weeks, I think. And then defensively, I'd be real excited if I was a Dallas fan, because you got, honestly, 2 linebackers in there, with Jalen Smith playing incredible and Leighton Vander Esch. I still think middle linebacker is the most underrated, undervalued position in football. You look at all the best defenses throughout the league in the last 10 years, they all had great middle linebackers. Dallas has potentially 2, and that's not even talking about Sean Lee, who's not healthy right now. But then you also got the corner. We always talk about the importance of having that number 1 corner. Well, they moved Byron Jones from safety to corner, and he's probably been the best corner in the NFL this year. And then you got the pass rusher in DeMarcus Lawrence. And you got some decent D linemen around them as well. So you got a ton of good pieces on this defense. It's very underrated right now. You'd wish this offense could be more consistent, and you'd really take this Dallas team seriously. But, I think they're going to keep this NFC East interesting with Washington and Philadelphia down the stretch. They got to go to Washington and win this week, though, for that to hold up. So let's talk about the studs and duds. We got a good chunk from this game. Andrew Norwell. That signing is a bust as well. That definitely had to play in the Bleacher Report's D- off-season ranking. He was an undrafted guy out of Ohio State. We've seen now that Carolina has done an excellent job developing these linemen within their system. So you pay the guy a bunch of money after he's one of the highest rated guards in the NFL last year. You pay him a bunch of money, you bring him into the new system, and he's actually not that physically imposing. He's a tactician in pass protection, but he doesn't really offer that same power run style that we're looking for. And all of a sudden, you're overpaying a guard way more than he's worth. So that's been kind of a flop. He's fine, but he is nowhere near the top in terms of highest rated guards this year. And then Telvin Smith's been disappointing this year. The coverage ability is still there, but, he's just showing, he is an undersized linebacker. He's struggling a little bit more in run defense this year. So he's going to come down to earth a little bit after an amazing season last year. And then Tyron Smith, we dropped Trent Williams. You can kind of say a lot of the same stuff about Tyron Smith. Now, I still think Tyron is playing at a high level. And I still, there's maybe 2-3 other tackles I would take over him right now. But I had him rated as the highest tackle in the NFL. He's probably not that anymore. He's also dealt with some nagging injuries. And then Alan Hearn's going to come down for Dallas. he's been a flop. He's playing almost every down, it seems, but he's not doing anything. I've never been a big Allen Hurns guy to begin with. And then Byron Jones going to go +2 this week, so he has just been skyrocketed. If we're at the midpoint and we're talking about star of the year, our midseason award, Byron Jones has been the biggest surprise in the NFL this year. I did not think he was going to translate and be a number one corner. I thought he'd probably be starting caliber, but I did not see this coming. He has been incredible. And that man is about to get absolutely paid. I can tell you that much. Because I'm pretty sure this is his contract year. And then Jalen Smith going to go up 1 as well. Those linebackers playing really well for Dallas. Just size and athleticism and instincts now from Jalen Smith. So a couple games left here. We got the Big 12 game, Kansas City at the Patriots. Really fun game to watch. Really resilient of this Chiefs team to come back and almost win this game in the end, but they do fall short. Tom Brady, these Patriots are just rolling. Really surprised that Vegas has them only as 3-point favorites in Chicago. I think they're going to go in Chicago and just continue to roll here. But you really walked away impressed by both these teams, I think. A statement win by New England for sure to remind everyone that this is still their conference. But for Kansas City, who is still a young team that, yes, they have been the team of the year in terms of excitement and hype. From a realistic standpoint, there's still questions in terms of how consistent can Pat Mahomes be? How bad is this defense really? But to come in here and, yes, they lost and the stock's down a little bit, it's still a big game for them. I still ranked Kansas City above the Patriots in my power rankings. This game was in Foxborough. It was close. They still got a bunch of injuries. Justin Houston did not play in this game. I know he's been down this year, but he's still their best defender outside of maybe Chris Jones. And then does Eric Berry come back? So there's interesting things here in Kansas City. Is this going to be the AFC Championship game? Probably. Pittsburgh and the Chargers are probably the only other two teams that have the potential to get to that point. But I do think there's a very good chance we see this rematch in the playoffs. So two studs and duds here. Kendall Fuller, I thought he would be a really good outside corner this year. And they've been playing him in the slot, and even there, he hasn't been that great. Granted, he's kind of surrounded by garbage in that secondary, so you can't really blame him. But the stock fallen just a little bit for Kendall Fuller, who they got in the trade for Alex Smith. And then Tyreek Hill is going to get a +1 again this week. The same week that EA does it, we're going 99 speed for Tyreek Hill. It could probably be 103. He is so clearly the fastest player in the NFL, the fastest player I've personally ever watched play football. And what a weapon he is, because he's not just a speed guy. You see Jakeem Grant, Albert Wilson, Taylor Gabriel, and there's a bunch of examples of these speed guys, but Tyreek Hill is an actual legitimate receiver. He can catch the ball in traffic, he runs good routes, but he also just happens to be impossible to tackle and impossible to catch. So that's enough on that game. Let's move on to the last game here. We got a lot to talk about here because really surprises on both sides of the ball. I thought Green Bay was going to win this game handedly after some sloppy losses against Detroit and Washington. I thought they would really come back focused, play better defense. And it turns out that there might be more to those losses than I was leading on. And then on the 49ers side, really impressed by some of the things they were able to do offensively, where I thought they would just kind of shut down. But Kyle Shanahan, an excellent game plan in this one to get exactly what he needed out of very specific pieces, which is what he does so well. And just setting up things on play action and the run game was just a flawless execution from the 49ers, even though they lost this game. And then, on the Green Bay side, the defense is very concerning. They've got some injuries on both sides of the ball, but really no excuses at this point. This was a game that they're 9.5-point favorites, and it took Aaron Rodgers pulling the game out of his ass for them to win this game. So a really big stock down game for the Packers in this one, and we got like a record amount of risers and fallers for those two reasons. We'll start on the 49ers side. Marcus Goodwin, we had lowered him. Turns out, he was just hurt. He's still pretty damn good. He ran a very nice sluggo route, little slant out-go route that was just beautifully executed. Shows off that he's not just a speed guy, kind of like the Tyreek Hill thing we were talking about. He can run some good routes as well. Really tough cover. I was high on him coming into the year. He hasn't quite lived up to that hype. Obviously, the Jimmy injury, it doesn't help. But a good game for Marcus Goodwin here. And then how about Mike McGlinchey, the right tackle for the Niners, looking like a franchise tackle. A lot of 49ers fans were upset when this pick happened. I really think this is going to go down as right there with, depending how the quarterbacks play out and Derwin James. This was, I think, the best pick in this class, mainly because you just don't find tackles anymore. Look around the league. No one can protect the passer. And coming out, he was the only clear guy that could do it. I would have maybe even taken him in the top 5. I was pretty high on McGlinchey, just freak athlete, sizey, really had it all in college. And the Niners got a steal here. He's probably going to bounce over and be the left tackle for the next 10 years, protecting Jimmy Garoppolo's blind side. Kind of makes me think of that David Bakhtiari, Aaron Rodgers combo. So that's good. And then you got Laken Tomlinson, a former first-round pick for Detroit. He comes in here to San Francisco, and he's been playing great. He's going to get a +1 this week. Raheem Mostert, why not? He looked good. Had him rated way down in the dumps, but proved he can play a little bit. And then George Kittle continues to go up. It's been through the air that he's impressed us, but this week it was the run blocking. Just such a threat, emerging as one of the 3 or 4 best tight ends in the NFL. Really reminds me so much of Travis Kelce. And then CJ Beathard with an impressive game in this one as well. Much more elusive than I thought he was in the pocket. Really good at extending plays for the caliber of quarterback that he is as that backup role. I still don't think there's a future for CJ Beathard, but a backup that you can feel pretty good about having. And then let's flip over and talk about the Green Bay side. Now, offensively, there is some good here. You got Davante Adams, a kind of a breakout game in a way for Davante Adams. Obviously, everyone knows who he is, but he is proving that he's an impossible cover. His release off the line of scrimmage just might be the best release in the NFL. He still has the occasional bad drop, but he's got pretty solid hands, and he's one of the 4 or 5 best receivers after the catch in the NFL by really any metric you look at. He can run with power and shiftiness. The Packers really aren't even close in this game if you take Davante Adams off the field. And then Corey Linsley. This is a center that was regarded as one of the 10 best centers in the NFL before 2017. Last year, a down year, plagued by injuries kind of all year, but reminding us this year, one of the premier pass protecting centers in this league. He is the 4th overall center on PFF, the highest pass blocking efficiency in the NFL this year. Just a rock in the middle. If it weren't for Corey Linsley and David Bakhtiari, who are 2 of the highest rated pass protectors in the NFL this year, I don't know if Aaron Rodgers is still, on the active roster and not on IR, because he's already taken a lot of shots. They're blitzing him a bunch. They know he's not moving very well. But a lot of that stuff's getting picked up, and it's creating big plays for this offense that they really need because this defense has been so bad. And this was another week where they just were nowhere to be found defensively in the first half, bunker down in the second half, but you can't do that in the NFL. You got to play 4 quarters. So, in this game, the causes were Clay Matthews throughout the entire year has not looked good. He's had a couple good games, but he's just awful in this one. So he's going to come down 3, just not getting after the quarterback consistently enough. And then Blake Martinez, I'm going to start calling him the kickoff specialist. I don't know if there's a more overrated player in the NFL right now. Maybe Kyle Rudolph. I just, people see the tackle numbers and they're like, oh, he must be good. He gets a bunch of tackles. Well, it's like half those tackles come after he's been beat in coverage. He's a linebacker in a 3-4 behind one of the best D-lines in the NFL. Of course, he's going to have a bunch of tackles. It's a scheme where they're asking the linemen to eat blocks and not get tackles, and they're relying on that linebacker to clean up. Blake Martinez is way too often literally attacked in terms of the game plan. They go after him in coverage. He's got no playmaker instincts, whether it's ball skills or the ability to actually shoot a gap and make a big stop. It's one thing to get a tackle after the running back has picked up a first down and has ran for 6 yards. It's another thing to meet him behind the line of scrimmage and bring him down. Blake Martinez almost never does that. And his run fits in this game were just awful. Way too often was he out of position where you just saw gaping holes for Mostert and Matt Breida in this game. And then the other guy here, Tramon Williams, it's not that he's been terrible this year, but, as we saw him getting kind of cooked on that Marcus Goodwin touchdown, he's playing like a smart 36-year-old corner, which is still not ideal. Was one of the higher-rated corners last year. Not quite playing at that level this year. So that's it. We got close, if not over an hour. We'll see where it comes out for this one. But a lot of good stuff to talk about this week. Thanks for your patience on this being a little later this week. Hit that like button if you made it this far. I mean, damn, you better have liked it, or I don't know what you're doing with your day. But hit that like button, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, all that. Enjoy the weekend, guys. Go football. We'll see you later. Peace out.